Hey friends, just a quick reminder before we get into today's episode, come join us over on our Patreon. That's where we release bonus episodes every other week, and we've already got over 20 episodes from 2023 that you can download and binge right now for as little as $3 a month. We've covered so many good books there, Haunting Adeline, Chateau, Gothicana, and so many more. That's also where we'll cover any books in a series we continue, so Serpent and Dove, High Mountain Court, Serpent and the Wings of Night. You can continue those series with us on Patreon right now. Finally, as a patron, we let you know what we're going to read every month, so you can read along with us if that's your jam. Anyway, that's all from me. On to today's episode.
I don't know. And that's where it got really Scooby-Doo at the end. Where, like, I felt like it was building up to a lot of reveals that weren't actually reveals. Like,
yeah,
Charlotte's entire purpose at the end of this book makes
no goddamn sense.
Makes no goddamn. And then she just fades away into dust. Like, 12 students were murdered for her to be there for 45 seconds.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It might have all been just to open the seal to hell, but I'm not convinced.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Welcome to Your Safe Space, the podcast your partner, friends, parents, whoever thinks is dirty. Don't have time to read books? Want to understand the jokes and the TikToks? We got you, fam. We're the Spice Traders, and we deal in spicy books. I'm Katie, and I need it to make sense.
I'm Liz, and I'm hypercritical. As always, we start every episode with 3 things. The first is a generic trigger warning. You can find specific triggers for this book in our show notes, so please check those out. Also, we do use foul language and talk a lot about sex. If you have sensitivity to any of this, please give this episode a skip.
Secondly, we talk about books. The whole book, nothing but the book, so help me goddess. If you plan to read this book and don't want something spoiled right now, don't listen to this episode.
Lastly, we acknowledge that a good book can hit you at the wrong time. The views expressed in our discussion are our opinion, and we absolutely don't want to diminish the work and the talent of the authors in our community. That said, we have some notes.
Katie, what are we talking about today?
Today, we are continuing our discussion of Coven by Harper L. Woods. This is part 2 of 2, and it will cover chapters 21 through 40. And so if you haven't read the book or listened to part 1, do one of those things now because we're halfway through the story. So we jump right in, and we are at the funeral for the witch who was murdered. This happens on the cliffs near the school, and Willow is again struck by how barren the land is. She's floored by the level of starvation in the natural world around her. She looks for Gray kind of instinctively, and she grates at the fact that she has indeed not been able to satisfy herself since he last left her.
Oof.
Oof. So rude.
So fucking rude.
When the funeral starts, Willow is horrified by the fact that this girl, this witch, is put in a casket. Willow knows that the witch needs to be buried with her element. She's a white witch, so she needs to be buried with crystals. Again, this is the same kind of concept that we saw with Willow's mother, where witches need to be able to let their bodies go back to the element that gives them their power. She intends to speak with the Covenant immediately, but Gray is there next to her in a flash and says that she needs to pick her timing more strategically. If she approaches the Covenant right now, outright, in front of all these people, she's going to immediately fail. He holds her back by holding her hand and says that she asked him to protect her, and that's all he's trying to do. The contact makes her emotions well up because the last person who held her hand like that was Ash at her mother's funeral.
She also makes it sound like no one besides Ash or her mom has ever held her hand.
She seems like she's very isolated.
No one has touched this girl, apparently.
Apparently. I mean, even despite the fact that she's, like, been out in the world, like, the first couple of chapters, she's like, oh, yeah, I had a job this one time at a newspaper, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, so you haven't been, like, completely alone.
Right. I mean, she had to be supporting Ash in some way. I assume she had some kind of job.
Yeah. Anyway, nobody's held her hand.
She's got a lot of feelings.
Yeah. As she watches the funeral progress, she vows to herself that she will free all of the witches buried against the old ways in the cemetery that's around the school. After the service, Willow approaches Susanna and George in the tribunal chambers. She can access the room because she's a future member of the board, and the magic warding the room recognizes this. So I guess this is why it took a little bit of her blood the first time she entered. So I guess I misspoke. We do get kind of an answer, but it's not explicit.
It's not explicit.
Susanna asks George to leave them to speak in private, and he does. Susanna tries to tell Willow that what she is doing is for the good of the Coven. So she openly admits that they're not following the old ways. Willow doesn't see how this is for the good of the Coven, since the earth is literally dying around them. But Susanna goes on to tell her that essentially she is weakening the Coven on purpose so that she can weaken the vessels until she can rid the Coven of them completely and or strike a new bargain. The tribunal practices the old ways in secret since the vessels cannot feed off of its members. Willow finds the idea of sacrificing the whole Coven to this end abhorrent, and she tells Susanna that she won't have any part in this plan. Susanna tells her she doesn't have a choice, that she will put Willow into a perpetual slumber if she's not cooperative. Susanna is sure that Ivan can be persuaded to mate with Willow even when Willow is asleep. Ew.
This was so fucking gross. Like, it's a terrible suggestion anyway, but it's just additionally gross that it's her great-grandmother with lots of greats. Yep. But, like, she... I didn't need the threat of Ivan raping her in her sleep.
Yeah, that's ew. And I think that's unfair to Ivan because Susanna just says this thing. Ivan has given no indication. We don't even know if this is true or if it's just something that Susanna has said. Like, right. Poor Ivan.
Poor Ivan. Well, and it's weird too because, like, that's another thing that's a bit strange at the end of this book because Ivan just disappears. Like, he is just no longer an entity.
Ceases to be.
But this, like, plants this seed in Willow's mind that maybe Ivan would be okay with this. I'm like, but why?
Right. Like, why are you believing anything that Susanna says?
And her whole plan diatribe was also wild to me. She's like, yeah, we're just going to basically let everyone die off so we can make a new deal with the devil. Which, by the way, do you not know that the devil is the headmaster? Because you must.
Okay, that's a good point. I don't know how Susanna and George don't know that Gray is the devil.
Like, he's just been in all their meetings and she's like, oh yeah, we need a new deal with the devil. I wonder where he could be. And he's just like, hey guys, I've
been here the whole time. So during this kind of argument thing that they're having, Susanna holds Willow up by the neck as she threatens to have people rape her in her sleep and is essentially choking her great-great-granddaughter. Before she can make her pass out completely, Susanna drops Willow onto the floor and then kicks her in the ribs a couple of times and then puts her bony-ass foot on Willow's chest to hold her down.
Why? I don't understand why she has to, like, assault her.
Yeah, this seems very, I don't want to say, I'm going to say out of character. Because
it does seem out of character.
Like, Susanna is definitely selfish and will do anything to get, like, what she wants, but physical assault feels like not her thing.
No, and it continues to seem out of character when we see her later in, like, a moment of danger, and she's like, oh no, the plants are taking me. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Where's your fight, girl?
Right. Oh no.
Oh no. I just don't understand Susanna at all.
I don't either. Again, have to reiterate, had a great time reading this book, but I have a lot of questions.
That's the tagline of this book.
So before Susanna can make good on her promise to basically put Willow into a perpetual sleep, Gray appears and says that if Susanna touches Willow again, he will tear her skull from her spine. George is next to Gray, and it's clear that George is the one that sought Gray out to stop Susanna from going too far. Gray goes on to tell Susanna that she violates the agreement between witches and vessels if she harms Willow, and he threatens to tell the devil himself about her violation. Susanna tells Gray to take Willow and get out of her sight.
So he's going to go talk. She's going to give himself a stern talking to.
Sorry, I just realized chaotic that conversation is.
Especially if Susanna knows who he is.
Which there's no way she can't know.
There's no way she doesn't know because it kind of answers the question as to why Gray has just like so much fucking freedom.
Yeah.
Because she's like, we get all this information that vessels and students can't have relationships, that like they can't feed from one person, that like there's got to be all these safeguards. But Gray comes in and he's like, I'm going to do this thing. And Susanna's like, wish you wouldn't.
Domininium or whatever.
Domininium. Yeah, and she's like, okay.
Oh, and then later, we'll get there. I'm sorry, listeners, this has got to be chaotic to listen to. But when Susanna is talking to Willow later, she's very aware that Gray is like powerful, and she almost all but says, dude, he's the fucking devil. Don't do this.
Yes, you're right.
I'm going to tell on you to myself.
And like, okay, so is he saying that for Willow's benefit, or is this like a threat? He has to be, right?
He has to. It's got to be in the context of like, hey, she doesn't know, blah, blah, blah. But then also I'm reminding you of who I am.
But just I'm going to tell the devil about this. In your journal? You going to write in your diary tonight? Dear diary.
Dear diary, today Susanna pissed me off and broke our agreement.
Therefore, I must always remember this violation. Well, and it also makes Susanna's response a little better, too, to be like, get out of my fucking sight.
Yeah. Just get out of here. I can't.
I can't with either of you. Just go. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm just thinking about so many other scenes in the context of him being the devil now that we know that.
Yeah.
Like the fucking, when he runs in and she's got the mark and he's like, what'd you do to make his list? What?
Yeah. Also, I mean, like, the method acting is solid.
Method acting is solid.
Anyway. So Gray takes Willow back to his room, and he realizes that she's got a couple of broken ribs and some other injuries, along with a bruised throat. And he urges her to drink from him since her injury is internal and dirt can't heal it for her.
She asks for dirt, and he's like, what are you going to do, eat it?
Yeah. Which I thought was pretty funny.
I thought it was really funny. I do like that their banter never really ceases.
Yeah, I do too. So she finally gives in and drinks deeply from him, seeming to understand that if she's got to do it, she may as well go all the way. And it's here that we get a little bit of information that when a witch and a vessel exchange blood, they both get kind of a temporary benefit from that. So a witch will get like some of the superhuman strength and like heightened senses that vessels have, and then vessels will get eventually access to a little bit of their power. But it has to be more of a consistent thing for that to really happen. So Gray pulls back before Willow can bleed him dry and compels her to sleep despite her protests. Remember, Susanna just threatened to keep her in sleep forever, so she's like not a big fan of this.
No, not only keep me in sleep, but send men to rape me.
Yeah. But Gray promises that she will wake up unharmed in a couple of hours, and he vows to pay Susanna back for making Willow fear sleep. Gross.
Okay.
Yeah. And remember from the last part 1 earlier in the book, we learned that he can compel her even with her special necklace on because they've exchanged blood.
Yes.
Yeah. Anywho, while she sleeps, Gray meets with Kairos and Juliet in his office, and he admits to having declared dominium over Willow, and Willow is ignorant of that fact, and she will remain so until he decides to tell her. And they're basically like ribbing him and not letting him live it down that he's like infatuated with this witchling, which is also very funny in the context of him being the devil.
That is really funny. Now I'm thinking about like Juliet and Kairos being basically his best friends. But then his like demonic best friends like emerge from hell later. Guys. Like, I need to know who all knows who he is, because I think it's everyone.
I think everyone.
I think it's everyone.
Because there's no way the other vessels don't know who he is because, again, they're literal demons trapped inside of a mud vessel, right?
Yeah.
So... Well, anyway. Willow wakes up a couple hours later, as promised, and sheds the remainder of her uniform in favor of one of Gray's shirts. Willow finds Gray in his study and thanks him for saving her. He tells her that he'll always come for her, and I really wanted this to be a sex joke, but it wasn't. It was serious.
I wanted it to be a sex joke, too. And it would have fit with their banter.
Yeah. But he ruins this tender moment by couching it in terms of their agreement. So basically, should he fail to protect her, she would have ownership over him. I guess, like, kind of compulsion. Like, he would have to do everything that she says.
Well, we kind of got that in the first part when they're talking about how you can, like, destroy a vessel. And the only way is, like, for them to break a vow or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But he's the devil.
I know. Also, okay, hang on. Let me buffering. So, okay. I just thought of something. So, the only way that a vessel can be unmade is two ways. One, a Hecate witch can unmake them, or two, they can break a vow. We were told earlier in this book that the vessels fucking hate being trapped in these bodies. So why don't they just break a vow?
So that they can be unmade. Because I imagine when you're unmade, you just get reunited with your soul in hell.
Right.
Is that not what they want?
I thought that's what they wanted.
I thought that's what they wanted, too. Which...
Unless, like, being unmade, like... traps you in hell again?
But your boss is the devil. Can't he just free you?
Not if...
Because his other... Well, I mean, I guess because hell is sealed. Because his other friends just, like, come out and they're not in human vessels.
Well, not because... Not... I mean, she opens the door to hell, so it's like...
Right. So they just,
maybe,
like, walk out.
Maybe they need to stick around so that happens? I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know what the vessels get out of, like, being on Earth.
Yeah. Anyway. Willow goes on to say that Gray was right about approaching the Covenant about the old ways, and they need to strategize. It's here that Gray admits that he doesn't give a rat's ass how the Covenant practices. He said that to get her to agree to a bargain with him. In her anger at being fooled, Willow throws a glass paperweight at him. And Gray dodges it just barely, remember, because she's got some of his super strength and super speed.
Yeah.
And the paperweight shatters against the floor.
And this is the paperweight that somehow had some image of a woman in it.
Right.
I picture this, and this doesn't matter, but have you seen those, like, glass paperweights that have, like, a dog in them? And they're kind of, like, holographic-y? Yes. That's what I'm picturing.
Yeah, I think you can get those at Disney or something, and you can, like, get your own ass picture in it.
Yeah, and it's weird because they're like little, like, bubbles almost.
Yeah. Very bizarre. Those always kind of freaked me out.
Me too. It's weird. And that's what I'm picturing that he has, but it's... Okay.
I pictured, so you know on the Haunted Mansion ride at the Magic Kingdom, the woman in the magic...
Oh, yeah. Madame Leota.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Ball. That's what I pictured.
I like that. Okay. That's better than my creepy dog situation.
So Gray does not like this, and so he uses his super speed to bend Willow over his desk and tell her that she's forgotten who and what she is. He says, quote, "I tolerate your mouth because you amuse me, Willow. Tread carefully, or you just might cease to be amusing. I am a demon. I may be trapped within a body that resembles a man, but you would be a fool to mistake me for one. I am not human, and I will not behave as one."
Ooh.
I gotta say, like, the author does a good job of, like, threading that line between, like, really being an asshole and, like, still being endearing.
Yeah, she does.
Which I'm glad about, because she, like, made this big promise about, like, how this guy is actually evil and, like, getting a happy ending. Yeah, good job. I'm here for it.
I know, she did a good job. There's a couple scenes, like, there's one later where, again, my note's just like, you're just a fucking gummy bear.
Yeah.
But then he will go back and do like kind of heinous things, or at least make heinous threats. And I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
it's fun.
Okay.
Okay.
So Willow accuses Gray of lying to her, and he asks her to be specific, which I hate because it's so gaslighty. Like, maybe you didn't say untrue words, but knowingly leading someone on under false pretenses is effectively the same thing.
And he knows that.
He knows that. Yeah. No, we know he knows that.
We know he knows that.
Willow struggles against Gray and accuses him of lying about her being safe with him, and he says, "Are you hurt?"
I did kind of like that.
And she realizes that she's not hurt, and so he goes on to ask whether she's wet. Like, are you hurt or are you wet?
And she's like, well.
So Willow realizes that Gray is being forceful, but not hurting her. And she is indeed wet.
Sploosh. I did like this scene because he like spins her around and like pins her against the desk. But then as he's asking her, are you hurt? She kind of has this like immediate flashback of like, he moved me really fast, but I never actually ran into anything.
Yeah, exactly. Even being bent over the desk, like his hand is on her neck, but it's not like bruising her like Susanna bruised her. Which again, I think I'm going to reference this at every book we cover like this, but the
safe insecurity.
Safe insecurity, yeah. Like
I love it.
100% that.
It's such a good term.
And it's okay. It invites us as readers in because we know that these two are like endgame, right? And we know that this isn't the kind of book that's like Haunting Adeline or something like that.
No. And we know that he does want to keep her safe.
Right.
And that there are actual feelings in here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So Gray lifts up Willow's skirt and smacks her ass and tells her to say that she doesn't want him and he'll stop immediately. But she says no such thing, despite continuing to threaten him with retribution for what he's currently doing. He tells her to beg, quote, "Beg me to make you come. If you expect me to get on my knees for you, then you'd better be ready to ask me for it, witchling." So she begs. Yeah.
As one does.
Yeah, as one does. And he obliges and eats her out. He also bites the inside of her thigh and drinks from her again. And this is a really good point. I don't know if you said it or not, but she takes being eaten out from behind really in stride for someone who's a virgin.
Yeah, like she, even in this scene, like it's detailed. Like we get a lot of detail. We get a detail of her like orgasming and like all of it. None of it is like, oh, I've never been in this position before. Oh my God, like this is a little embarrassing. Like all like the thoughts that I feel like a virgin would have.
Right.
Nope, she's just like, yes, on your knees.
Yeah. On your knees. I definitely want the feeling of your mouth on me. Like I've never not thought about this before.
Right. So I don't know. Potentially she's had other exploits, but it's just, she's very chill about this whole thing.
So after this encounter, Willow avoids Gray.
Again, how? He's your teacher.
Yeah, somehow. Again, history teacher or no, they're avoiding each other. Until it's the day of the first reaping. And boy, is this a weird thing.
This is not what I thought it was going to be.
I just... Wow. There are so many other ways you could do this.
I thought it was going to be like, what's the name of that book with the other witch with the purple eyes and the Gothic Hannah? Okay. I thought it was going to be like Gothic Hannah, where it was just sort of like this weird fucking orgy party that like everyone got in on.
Yeah.
That's what I was expecting.
It's a school dance and everybody gets drunk and then vampires eat from you and then it's an orgy. Like, look, it's fun.
That's fully what I thought the reaping was going to be. Not this like weird fucking thing that happens.
Yeah. Mm-mm. So let's get into what happens. So say it's the day of the reaping, and Willow is in her feelings because as much as she's avoiding Gray, she hates the idea of him drinking from someone else. She's like, well, obviously, like he partakes, right? Vessels, we learn, are assigned to students once a week, but they never feed from the same student twice. This goes back to what Susanna is trying to do, keeping the vessels weak. The other part of this is that the students don't know which vessels have fed from them. That is, unless dominium has been declared, and that constitutes an exclusive relationship of vessel and witch. So Dela ends up helping Willow prepare for the reaping. So they go to Willow's room, and we find out that if you've been selected to be reaped, you must be... so sorry. You must be...
It's just so fucking weird.
You must be handcuffed and secured either to the bed or a hook in the ceiling.
That is lowered with like a remote control.
Yep. These are just BDSM bedrooms, okay.
With like leather handcuffs.
You have to wear a special outfit, and you are given a choice of 2 outfits. One of them is just a regular silk nightgown, and the other one is something sexier, which indicates to whoever is reaping from you that you are open to having a sexual experience with that vessel.
What? Willow does ask the good question where she's like, how can I know I want to have sex with them if I don't know who's coming?
Right. And Dela's just like, pish posh, she would want to have sex.
I know. Dela's like, you clearly never had hate sex.
Okay, but also, like, a vessel can make a feeding feel like ecstasy. So, like, isn't that kind of like a date rape drug?
I think so. And also, regardless of which one you choose, you're naked underneath. Like, she talks about, like, this silk nightgown shows, like, leaves nothing to the imagination anyway.
Right.
So, and you're blindfolded, you're strung up. What's to stop the vessel from doing you anyway?
Right, exactly. Well, and I don't know. I think it's very if you're signing up to have sex with the vessel that comes to feed off of you, you're signing up for either a very prescriptive way of having sex, which is hopefully very vanilla, or you're going to get violated.
Yeah, you have no idea what you're signing up for.
No.
And that's terrifying.
Yeah.
And a little, I mean, like, listen, I'm not going to slut shame, get it off, but, like, you don't know who's coming. It's never going to be the same person twice. So, like, can vessels get STIs? I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I don't know where you've been.
Is there, like, if you do have a sexual experience, is there a conversation about what you are and are not okay with? Like, how far does this go?
Right. Is there, like, a safe word?
Right. So, yeah, I've just, like, honestly, I would have been more okay with a school orgy.
Me too, because this whole thing was just so fucking weird.
Yeah. Okay, and what makes this creepier is that it's not all students who are just automatically reaped, right? It's the vessels, like, select what students they want to reap. And so they're like, the way that the students find out about this is that there's a big X painted on their door when they get back to their room. So, like, Dela's not selected, but Willow is. And that just feels creepy to me.
Well, the other thing that just adds a layer of creep is they live in quads, right? So there's, like, an apartment and, like, 4 rooms with her and her 3 roommates. One door has a red X on it. So you just have to, like, listen to her, like, the rest of you tonight. Like,
yep. And the people who aren't reaped are, like, encouraged to stay in their room.
Yeah, like, until morning. Well, and Dela's very flippant about this whole thing.
Yeah. She's like, you get used to it. You'd want
it's
sex.
Fine.
I get it.
You'd want sex. And Willow's like, but I thought all the witches hated the vessels. And Dela's like, that doesn't mean it's not fun.
I'm like, okay, Dela, are you a red witch? Are you sure?
Well, and it also makes me wonder, do they hate the vessels? Because the only person we hear of hating the vessels is Willow.
Yeah, they say that there's, like, this hateful relationship between them, but
it seems fine. We don't see them interact with them.
Why?
Just because they feed from them, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, and then everybody else, I mean, the other students that have interactions with Gray that we see, like, it just seems like they are afraid of him because he's the headmaster, not because he's a demon trapped in a mud vessel.
Right. It's just very strange.
Anyway.
It's
also,
also
I just can't get over Lucifer being the headmaster of a school.
why? Why is he there? How did he get put in a vessel? What has his body just... Doesn't he have to rule hell? Like, don't you have a job?
I mean, he has a job, but then he ends up doing paperwork for a school for witches.
I don't understand, like, why he's in a vessel at all.
No, I don't either. It's very bizarre.
And when he's not with Willow, yeah, is he just, like, grading term papers and dealing with, like, delinquent children?
Yeah, I mean, that's why the whole ending, and I'm sorry, again, we're talking out of context, but, like, the whole end with Charlotte coming back briefly, like, the only reason it makes sense for him to be, like, to agree to being trapped in a vessel is if he wanted to be with Charlotte in the physical world and, like, couldn't figure out how to, like, do that any other way.
Yeah, but that's not what he wants.
That's not what happened. So I don't know whatever. Anyway, we got to keep moving. So as tempting as it is for Willow to pick the sexier outfit, she does not. As Dela strings her up, Willow realizes that the last thing that has to happen is that she also must be blindfolded. And this gives her a panic attack. Not the other things. She was fine with those other things, but the blindfold is a bridge too far. And we learned that this is because it reminds her of the torture that her father would mete out upon her. He would put her in a literal coffin-sized cubbyhole in his cabin for hours on end.
And it's, like, described as if you're in a morgue and you have those drawers. Like, she crawls in as if, like, horizontally, and then the lock is, like, at her feet.
Yeah.
Which is so much scarier to me than, like, being vertically in a space.
Yeah. And for some reason, there's dirt that, like, falls on her face, too.
Yeah.
Like, while she's in there, oh no. Very claustrophobic. No. So Dela sees that something is, like, really wrong with Willow, but doesn't pry when Willow deflects and tells her to just do it and she'll be fine. By the time Gray gets there, and he did take his sweet-ass time just to kind of, like, I don't know, brew the tense, like, anticipation, I guess.
Because I think he thought that she'd be into this, and instead...
Right. She's very much not, because by the time he gets there, the room is, like, coated with the smell of Willow's fear, and Gray immediately knows that something isn't right. But he doesn't give up the ruse to comfort Willow.
So, this is a scene where I had two other options that I think would have been more interesting.
Yeah.
I think, one, it would have made for a more interesting story if someone else did come and it wasn't Gray, which I get violates the Dominium, but I think that would have been fun.
Agreed.
Two, I think he should have given up the ruse and comforted her.
Yeah. I think it would have been interesting if, like, he showed up, but then also, like, someone like Juliet was there.
Oh, yeah.
And, like, Juliet did the reaping.
But, like, under his, like, supervision.
Right. Because, like, he knows that Willow's, like, not into girls, right? So it wouldn't be, like, a sexual conquest thing. And it could also be, like, I'm going to say fun ownership, and I know how problematic that is. But, like, a fun ownership thing. Like, oh, you are a gift that I can share with, like, people that are loyal to me.
It's kind of like being a cuck. Like, he kind of wants to, like, see that.
Exactly.
And I'd be okay with it.
I think we would all be a little bit okay with that in this context anyway.
Exactly. Like, Juliet seems great. I don't know.
But no, none of those things happen. He does feed from her, and he does make it pleasurable, and he does, like, he gives her, like, a loving touch or something, like, on her face to make her feel better.
Her. Yeah, I don't know. Okay, we don't get, like, he feeds from her and leaves. Who takes her down? Della?
Yeah, she's just there all night, like.
Right, like, and she's talked about being suspended, like, by her wrists, like, on her tippy toes. So, like, her shoulders are killing her.
And her fingers have got to be numb.
Yeah. I think I'd rather be tied to the bed. At least then I can recline and sleep when this is done. Like, what does she do the rest of the night? Just dangle there? I don't, like.
I know.
Don't understand.
No. So the next day, Gray calls Dela into his office and tries to understand why Willow was so panicked. Dela said that she got the impression that something bad had happened to Willow. And when Gray asks her to keep an eye on Willow and let him know if she sees anything or Willow tells her anything, she asks him to let Willow keep her secrets. But Gray goes on to say that he's just concerned about his students. He tells her that he can make an accommodation if needed, and that he's acting in the best interests of the school to have Dayla spy on her friend.
I love Dayla's response to this because she's like, I'm sorry, you want me to ask her about her trauma and then report it back to you?
Excuse me?
Really
Isn't there a counselor who should be doing this?
Right. She's like, yeah, I'm not going to do that.
Dayla's the only adult in the room. She's like, this is beyond inappropriate. Also, this never comes back, right? He asks her to do this thing and then it's just like dropped, which is fine.
Yeah, like he kind of finds out later when Charlotte is like, no one should hurt their children. But like he never really finds out.
No. Well, and like... There's a lot of things in this story that kind of fall into this category. And I would say that for books that are in this category, this is kind of par for the course, right? Like the author will show us something that the characters do to just kind of like give us like character building, but they're never followed up on because it's not what we're here for, honestly.
It's not. Well, and we kind of mentioned this in the first part. I don't know if it got cut, but she didn't need this trauma backstory.
No, she really didn't.
No.
Like, because you could have made her motivated based on just the family lore and like the sense of loyalty that she had with her dad. But instead her dad is a piece of shit. And so...
Well, and I continue to not understand her dad's motivation. And is she doing it just because she's afraid of her dad? Because she could easily kill him.
Right. Easily. Yeah. I don't understand her dad's motivation. And... this whole backstory of trauma just kind of feeds in to the damsel in distress trope, which I'm here for, don't get me wrong, but again, I have a lot of questions.
Well, I think that's what my notes say when he doesn't comfort her. I was like, oh, but I want this like damsel in distress moment, like, let me take you down and hold you. Like, I want
that.
Right.
Exactly. And I still want that because I feel like there are so many things that like, well, actually, I don't know. Gray probably knows everything about her, but I still want this like damsel in distress moment to like be made good because we don't actually get that.
No, we don't. And it just, I mean, this goes with him being a true villain, and then I'll let this go. But the like, I'm going to feed from you anyway and make you have a great time, even though you're having a panic attack. Like, right. Okay. I guess it's on par for the devil. Yeah. It's a little hypocritical, but...
So next we get another trope and we see the students out on the lawn having hand-to-hand combat class because of course they are.
Because of course they are. I did like in this scene, because we know that Willow is curvy, she talks about how relieved she is to be able to wear pants because she's tired of putting deodorant on her legs because she chafes. And I'm like, I like the representation because girl same, without there being like a body shame thing. Like there's no like, oh, I hate wearing skirts because I'm fat. It's just like, no, I like to wear pants because my thighs rub together and it fucking hurts.
Right. And I love that she puts it in the context that like we as women all know. She says, I don't have a thigh gap, so I have to use deodorant.
Because girl same.
Yeah. Then like, look, I live in a hot state. I get it.
I get sticky and damp and it hurts after a bit.
Look, I am no stranger to Gold Bond or deodorant down there.
Nope.
Anyway, Ivan and Willow are facing off. Why? I don't know.
Why? What does Ivan do? Why is he in some classes and not others? He has no magic. I just don't get it.
Nope. But don't worry. Gray quickly intervenes, saying that Ivan is going too easy on Willow and doing her no favors, therefore. He reminds them that there is a murderer on the loose.
Yeah, okay, Lucifer.
Yeah. So Gray becomes her sparring partner and they fight.
Of course. And they fight.
And Gray puts her on her ass and then reprimands her by telling her that she's not human, so she needs to stop fighting like one and to use her magic. When she does, it's a much fairer fight, just like the first time that they met. And of course that this is a spectacle for the rest of the students watching. They're like, oh, the headmaster's fighting with a student. I'm like, Jesus Christ. Guys, no chill.
No chill. And it's stupid because we already know that she can fight with magic because she already has done it against Gray.
Right. We didn't need this scene to remind like us that she's capable of like going one-on-one with Gray. Like I don't understand why we had this scene.
No. No.
We could have had a different one, like, because this scene does serve a purpose for, like, what happens immediately next, but, like, they could be doing literally anything else on this spot, and it would have the same effect.
Exactly.
Anyway. Later, when Willow takes a hot bath to ease her sore muscles, she remarks that hand-to-hand combat isn't new to her, since her dad used to put her in an underground fight club and bet against her to toughen her up. Wow.
Okay. Again, she doesn't need this backstory. Like,
this backstory just gets more and more bananas.
it's fucking bananas. And we get this sense that she's living in a traditional divorced parent home. So it's just her, like, every third weekend with her dad. He's just fighting her. Like, I don't understand.
Well, and this is another instance of where she gives us far too much detail about this, because I have questions, because she mentions that even though she wasn't of age yet, the dirt would still heal her cuts and bruises so that her mom would be none the wiser, which means that this happened before she was 16. So he's putting a 12-year-old into Fight Club and somehow finding grown-ass men or grown-ass women to fight her.
Well, that's what I was just wondering. I'm like, who are her opponents? Are they fellow 12-year-olds? Like, yeah. I don't understand what's happening.
Yeah. No, the coffin wasn't enough. She had to do a Fight Club too.
It's fucking weird. And it's so stupid because she doesn't need to know how to fight because she doesn't use that anyway.
Well, and I think it would have made more sense for her mom to teach her, because she has magic and she would be able to teach her, like, how to use both at once.
Yeah, because her mom clearly told her how to use her it just doesn't make fucking sense.
No. Anyway, as she soaks, she hears someone calling her name, and then she feels something slide against her, like, leg underwater, but in both cases, there's nothing and no one there to, like, blame that on. And then Gray comes bursting into the bathroom and asks if she's okay.
This is so fucking weird, too, because is it not Gray murdering these students?
It is. Anyway.
Okay. Great.
He bodily pulls her out of the tub and says there's been another murder. He takes her to see the body, and it's in the same place where she was sparring with Ivan and Gray earlier in the day. This time, it's a male witch, and his liver is missing. There's also the word 2 written on the side of the school in blood, so the number 2.
I don't understand why he rushed into the bathroom and made her come see this. And he comes in as if it's like, there's been another murder. I had to make sure it wasn't you.
I had to make sure it wasn't you.
Even, a couple things here. Even if you weren't the murderer, you would already know it wasn't her because I assume you already saw the body.
Great point. So this is when we learn about the prophecy of the daughter of 2. A witch born between 2 bloodlines who would restore what had been lost to time. Great. Wonder who that could be.
There's no way to know.
As Willow leaves to return to her room, Daly catches up to her and asks whether she heard the voice calling Willow's name as well. Willow admits that she did, but she thought that she was just hearing things. However, both of them admit that the voice felt like it was trying to compel whoever was listening. Dayla heard the same voice and followed the voice to the body. She was the one who found this student. Gray is convinced that it was none of his people, but says that if the daughter of 2 was part of the Hecate line, she would be able to compel people if she found Charlotte's bones. Inwardly, Willow's like, well, it wasn't me who lured the witch from his bed. And looking back on this scene, I'm just like, why would you say that?
I don't know.
Okay.
Also, this whole fucking murder scheme is so weird because she gets to the school and is like, I might kill people and I'm going to bury them in the woods.
Yeah, where did that storyline go? I was like here for her murdering people.
Me too, but now she's like appalled that anyone would think it was her.
I would be here for a murder conflict or a murder like thing that she was a part of where she just keeps accidentally killing people.
Well, I kind of had that thought in here where I'm like, maybe she is doing it like in her dreams or something.
Yeah. Well, and we never get an answer to like whose voice it was and like what she felt in the bathtub. Like,
no.
It's trying to do this gothic horror thing, but like it never quite lands.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
Yeah. It's worth mentioning at this point that both of the witches who have been murdered are a part of the group from outside Crystal Hollow. So remember, there were 13 of them, including Willow. So now they're down to 11.
11. That's math.
Yeah, that's math, baby.
That's math,
So
baby.
good at it. So later that night, Willow is restless, and so she roams the halls trying to get some clarity about what's happening, which seems like a great idea given recent events.
People are being murdered, Willow. Go the fuck to bed.
As she does this, she sees a vision of Charlotte Hecate walking through the forest, and she is younger than Willow had imagined. She has auburn hair and purple eyes, and is joined by a man with dark magic emanating from him. When Willow is released from the vision, she's met by a group of witches who are a part of the remaining group from outside Crystal Hollow, and they end up beating the shit out of her because they believe that she's responsible for the deaths of their classmates. Willow doesn't fight back because she knows that they're not the enemy and she understands where they're coming from or something. And when they leave her, she crawls to Gray's office for help, not knowing where else to go.
I don't understand why she doesn't fight back. Like, it's couch like they're not the enemy, I'm not gonna hurt them. Also, I get why they're mad. Also, I fight back, they're gonna think I'm guilty. No, girl, you can't just like let them beat the because they almost like kill her. Like they punch her in the kidneys and in the ribs and like in the face, like they break her nose.
Yeah.
There's like 7 of these fuckers too that like jump her in the hallway.
Well, and like, okay, so I always have this question in situations like this in books because, like, there are, like, a number of people, like you said, and both genders, right? So men and women.
Yeah.
And they're just regular ass people. Like, yes, they've been in hand-to-hand combat, but there's always something different about threatening to beat somebody up and then actually being there and being complicit in beating somebody up.
Yeah.
And not a one of them is just like, oh, maybe this is a bad idea.
No, not a one.
Which just seems unrealistic. Like, they basically leave her there for dead, and they're just like, deuces.
It doesn't make any sense to me. Also, a thing I had with the issue in this book is the pacing, because the reaping's supposed to happen once a week. So you're telling me this whole book takes 1 week. Maybe a week and a half.
You're right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really weird. I have to believe that's a continuity error because she, at some point, says weeks ago. Oh, when Susanna offers her like the out to leave, and she's like, "If you had asked me that weeks ago, blah blah."
Oh yeah,
and I'm
so
like, okay, so does the reaping not start when school starts?
I don't know, because I feel like I remember Gray saying something to Della or vice versa of like, yeah, I mean, you're gonna be nervous when you get chosen in the first week or something.
Right.
So we just gonna skip all the other reaping scenes, I guess.
I guess so. Yay.
It's bad.
So Gray finds her and gives her his blood and heals her wounds. He asks who did this to her, but she doesn't give up the students, knowing that Gray would likely maim or kill them.
He's gonna anyway.
He tells her that she could have died, and she's like, yeah, and what difference would that make? No one would care, and Gray tells her that he would care. He tells her to keep fighting, but she asks what happens when she's tired of fighting, and Gray tells her, quote, then you let me do it for you, end quote.
I kind of liked that.
Yeah, I kind of like that too.
Yeah.
He bathes her and puts her in another one of his shirts, and she sleeps. When she wakes up, she goes to leave, but Gray shuts the door from across the room. He reveals that pair bonding between a vessel and a witch has been banned by the Covenant because it gives vessels access to some of the witch's powers, which is why he was able to do that. He then reveals that it was he who fed from her during the reaping. And he goes on to say that he now feels the magic within her, even the one that she tries to hide. Willow is convinced that he's going to kill her when he tells her that he knows exactly what she is and has for some time.
Like your whole life.
Like your whole fucking life. Oh.
Yep.
Oh.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Don't think about it too hard. Listen.
Okay. He asks her what her plan was, and she admits to originally planning to unmake all the vessels once she found the bones, but he can tell there's something that she's not saying and guesses that she can't admit even now that she's in love with him. He pushes her back onto his desk during this conversation, and they are getting very hot and very heavy.
Very hot and heavy, which is okay.
Yeah. So they end up. So they end up. I don't remember if they're naked or what, but he ends up like. I don't know how to say this. I don't want to say as he pushes into her. Like,
oh yeah, do they end up on the bed or are they still at the couch?
no, they're still on the desk.
Oh yeah, okay. He has like a towel wrapped around his waist, and she's just wearing one of his shirts. So like they're pretty much naked.
They're pretty much naked. And so they start to have sex, right? And as he pushes into her, he says that he'll help her find the bones, but expects something in return. And rather than just easing into her, he just like goes full bore and like, realizes immediately that she's a virgin because she's in a lot of pain.
She's not having a good time.
She tries to breathe through it, and he drops to his knees and licks the blood off of her thigh, telling her it's a dangerous thing to give a vessel your virginity because there's magic and blood, and even more magic and blood that can only be given once. It creates an obsession between the vessel and the witch.
Okay, this is a point that I didn't like that she's a virgin. What I didn't like even more is that her father like orchestrated this. Like her dad basically was like, you need to stay a virgin and seduce him.
Yep.
And then later, like we find out more of what that means. I don't understand her dad's motive.
I don't either, because like the thing that Gray is not saying here is that it works both ways, right? Like, it's not vessels that get like are that are the only ones benefiting from a relationship like this, because the witches are also getting like superhuman strength and stuff like that. And arguably, like, the witches would have a better deal from this because they are now superhuman and have full access to their powers. Whereas even Gray admits in the scene that vessels only get access to like essentially party tricks. Yeah,
they can only do a little bit with it.
Right.
So it is a benefit for the witch.
But it's also the thing, like you said, like why are men so obsessed with virgins?
I don't know. It's so fucking weird. And it's like
gross.
It's gross. It's gross anyway. It's super gross that her dad was concerned about it. We also get this weird, gross tidbit of information that when witches reach the age of 16, they're like instructed to sleep with someone who's not a vessel to avoid this happening.
Right. Gross.
Ew. What?
Yeah. Anyway, they do continue, and Gray is much gentler and eventually bites Willow to flood her body with euphoria. And the scene is fine. Again, not my favorite.
No, it wasn't quite One-Handed Reading Club. Like, it wasn't bad. It was fine. I just didn't like that she was a virgin and in pain and like not having fun.
Yeah, not having a great time. Yeah.
No.
Anyway, later, Gray watches Willow as she begins the long slog of reviving the grounds around the school. He's like in his office, like watching out of a window, and he's summoned Kairos to his office and tells him that he, Gray, must go into town for a couple of days, and Kairos is to watch Willow without Willow knowing it, mostly so Willow doesn't rip Kairos apart. As they both watch her, they remark how no one like her has existed before because she is both life and death. We hop to Willow in the garden, and she is joined pretty soon by Susanna. Willow is wary, obviously, given their last interaction, but Susanna says that she has no intention of hurting her. Today.
What? Today. Okay.
Thanks.
Thanks.
She shows Willow a picture of Lorelai and says she finally figured out what it was about Willow that struck her as odd. She guesses correctly that Lorelai is Willow's aunt. Willow expects Susanna to kill her, but Susanna tells her to leave and to never return, to ward herself so that even the Covenant and Grey cannot find her. Willow considers this offer and remarks that she would have jumped at that chance just a few weeks prior, but now she knows people here like Dela and is in love with Grey.
This, again, doesn't make sense to me because isn't Susanna's whole goal is to let the Coven die out? So why are you going to let her run away? And it's like, because you're the last of my bloodline, but I was going to let you die anyway? I don't understand.
Well, she was going to let her stay alive long enough to sire a child, and then she was going to kill her.
Oh, that's true. But now you can just go frolic off and like start a whole new Coven?
Yeah, that doesn't make sense to me. Like, why? Just put her back in a dream sleep and like put her in the tribunal chambers or something. Like, also, Susanna had said earlier that the tribunal members practice the old ways in secret because the vessels aren't allowed to feed from them. Shouldn't that extend to Willow too, since she is de facto a member of the tribunal?
It should.
Okay. Well,
That's a really good point.
good shit. Moving on.
Good shit.
To sweeten the deal, Susanna reveals that Gray has had Charlotte Hecate's bones this whole time.
I've been here the whole time.
Right. And Willow scoffs that can't be true because Gray knows what she is. Susanna then is filled with fear and tells Willow to run. The rose bushes pick up on Willow's emotions and begin imprisoning Susanna in their vines. Willow doesn't command them to stop, and Susanna does nothing to fight them off. Before Susanna is completely buried alive, she warns Willow, quote, "Your destiny is not to do what is right. Your destiny is to destroy us all," end quote.
Which, fine, but isn't that what you were trying to do anyway? I just don't understand.
Yeah, like it seems kind of like this Venn diagram is almost a circle.
The call is going from inside the house.
Right. So with that warning and the realization that Susanna would rather be buried alive than face whatever it is that is in Willow's destiny, Willow runs for the forest.
I was reading very fast at this point, and I missed the transition from her being in the garden to being in the forest. And it was very chaotic for a while in my mind's eye. I was like, how did you get so far away?
Yeah.
Also, Kairos, what the fuck are you doing? Like,
It feels very much like Gray and Kairos were watching from the window, and then as soon as we flipped to Willow, they were just like deuces, and Gray like bolted out the door, and Kairos was just like, "Hey, Gray," and looked away for 2 seconds, and when he looked back, Willow was gone.
right? And you just see Susanna like getting sucked into the earth.
Yeah. And Kairos is like, "Shit.
God damn it."
He's totally going to kill me for this." As Willow runs, she hears a howl cut through the air, and she knows that she's missed something. She's trying to figure it out as she's running, and the forest helps her, revealing a path to Salem, but she knows that she'll have to outrun the beasts that chase her in order to make it to safety. These beasts are wolf-like, but can stand on their hind legs like men, and they're huge, much larger than Willow or a normal wolf. They end up surrounding her, and though she tries to fight them off with her magic, ultimately one of them topples her. Just as it goes in for the killing strike, Gray appears, because of course he does.
Because of course he does.
He soon dispatches the rest of the wolves, and Gray asks her what the hell she was thinking. She obviously could have been killed. Willow doesn't say much, and Gray knows immediately that something between them has shifted. Instead of telling him what was going through her mind, Willow instead asks how many of those beasts there are. Gray tells her that he doesn't exactly take a census, but that they are the cursed. They were originally created by Charlotte, and they were men from Salem who were chasing her for being a witch. Quote, Charlotte decided that if they were going to kill her for practicing witchcraft, even though she was innocent, then she was going to do the very thing they accused her of, end quote, and subsequently made the deal with the devil.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Moving on. Also, I thought Charlotte Hecate was a lot older than that.
Me too.
Like, I was thinking ancient Greece.
Me too, because the Salem witch trials were what, in the 1800s? No.
No, they were like the 1700s. But
still. Yeah, I thought she was a lot older too. Okay, yeah, 1692 to 1693. But I think that's what's a little jarring in this book because, and again, this is still very out of context, but we have Lucifer, we get like Leviathan and Beelzebub and like all of these like biblical names, and then the Salem witch trials, and it's just like these weird time jumps.
Yeah. I mean, I think it would be more interesting if Charlotte was like really ancient, right? Like, I mean, her last name is Hecate, right? Like that.
Well, I think that's what also made her feel really ancient, because Hecate is a goddess in her own right.
Right. So it would be really cool if she was Hecate, actually.
Yes, which is what I was hoping for. Because Hecate is the goddess of death and stuff.
Witchcraft,
magic, the moon, and night.
Yeah.
Okay, not death. Sorry, Hecate.
And or I thought it would be cool if she was like Lilith or somebody.
Well, that's kind of the vibe I got with her, like, rib being put into Willow. Like, it felt very, like, first woman, like, yeah. But she's just
some woman.
Just some woman who made a deal with the devil during the Salem witch trials.
Yeah. Anyway, finally, Willow tells Grey that Susanna knows what Willow is, and that's why she ran. It's not a lie, but it's not the whole truth either. Back in Grey's room, Willow is showered and refreshed, but Grey quickly pushes her to tell him exactly what Susanna said to her. Willow is evasive. So Grey summons Kairos to corroborate the story and to fetch Susanna in order to hear her side of things, but Kairos reveals that no one can find Susanna.
I never saw her leave the garden.
Grey immediately puts together what happened and tells Kairos to search the dirt in the garden and dismisses him.
Oops.
When they are alone, Grey opens the safe behind the portrait of Satan behind his desk and reveals that he's had the bones all along.
I've been here the whole time. Also, can we just take a moment to appreciate that he has a self-portrait behind him?
A self-portrait of the worst day of his life. Because we didn't mention this, but this picture is a painting of the fall of Lucifer. So it's him falling through the sky with wounds on his back where God ripped his wings off.
What a choice.
What a mood, honestly.
I actually love that.
Yeah, and earlier when Willow first sees it, she like is caught looking at it, and Grey's like, "It's a reminder," and she's like, "Okay," and then asks not a follow-up question.
It does make me wonder if God is going to come into play in the subsequent books.
Oh, that would be interesting.
And like Michael
he's like,
and stuff.
Yeah, and then maybe it's a why choose
between God and the devil. I'm not opposed to that.
I'm kind of here for it.
Yep.
Anyway, so anyway, as Willow comes into contact with the bones, pain rips through her as things shift inside of her to make room for this new magic. Willow is devastated by the betrayal and tells Grey that she wants no part of whatever is going on until he tells her the truth. He does not afford her that luxury and forces her to interact with the bones, which form a permanent necklace around her throat. He tells her that she will be the last of the Hecate line and the bones will die with her. And then poor Kairos comes back, and when he comes back to report what happened to Susanna, Willow immediately unmakes him.
Just touches him and he falls into mud.
Yeah.
I love that. Grey's like, that was unnecessary. Look at the mess you made.
Right, he's just totally unconcerned. She tries to unmake Grey too, but he tells her, quote, "There's so much of your blood in me, witchling. You cannot unmake me because those bones recognize me as part of you."
Which also was fortified by her, like, virgin blood.
Yep.
Which, again, makes me wonder why her dad planned all of this.
Right. I have to imagine that her dad, like, just didn't really understand and was just like, yeah, dudes love virgins, for sure.
For sure. And this will work for sure.
God. So Willow commands that Grey take the bones off of her, but he tells her that they are a part of her now, and to do so would kill her. And he very much wants her alive.
Well.
He then throws her over his shoulder and takes her to the tribunal room. As they walk, Willow accuses him of being heartless and using her as a means to an end, like everything else in his world. He tells her that there are a lot of things that do indeed represent a means to an end for him, but, quote, "Never you, witchling. You're the key to everything. You're exactly what I've been waiting for all these years."
Because he has been waiting all the years.
But I would prefer him to say who instead of what.
Yeah, because she's not a thing.
Yeah. But details. He goes on to say that only a Hecate witch can unmake vessels, but they are also the only ones who can end the corruption of the Covenant. When Grey uses his magic to imprison George against the wall in the tribunal room, Willow is shocked that he can use her magic so easily. He tells her, quote, "Where do you think Willow..." Or He tells her, quote, "Where do you think Charlotte got her magic?"
From me, obviously.
Which should have been a dead giveaway.
But it wasn't.
In the center of the room, Gray lifts up a hatch, revealing a mirror with the image of a woman on the outside rim. Willow at first thinks that this is Charlotte. Then a vessel arrives with Susanna's bones, and her skeleton slowly reforms, and Gray imprisons her on the wall next to George. This vessel also brought a bag with 2 items inside, which he places on the floor, and it is a heart and a liver from the dead witches.
Gross.
Willow is shocked and tells Gray that he was so convincing, seemingly genuinely worried for her safety during the murders. He tells her, quote, "I have had centuries of practice lying to naive little girls just like you."
Oh, damn.
Damn. It's still pretty comical to think about, though.
It's so comical.
So pretty quickly, the other 10 outsider witches are shown in, and one by one they are slaughtered in front of Willow. From each, Gray demands part of them: brain, kidneys, lungs, etc. Willow can't help but notice that Gray makes the death of the witches who attacked Willow particularly slow. As he does the grisly work, he also reveals that he's the one who murdered Lorelai.
Why?
She asks him why he murdered her when she was a Hecate witch, and he tells her because everything he's done has been one step closer toward making her, Willow. Lorelai had to die so that Willow would become the daughter of 2.
Okay. I mean, sure, but this is where things got Scooby-Dooey and too convoluted.
Yeah, Scooby-Doo and a little bit off the rails, if I'm honest.
It goes way off the rails.
Really quick. So, Gray then commands Willow to bleed the Covenant, and he can't compel her anymore because her Hecate powers are alive and well. So even though his blood is in her veins, that works, like he can't compel her. He tells her that she can use her necromancy powers to give both of them flesh once more, but she refuses. So Gray has Ash and Willow's father brought into the chamber.
Okay, so Gray says, like, please don't make me force you. You're going to hate me for what I have to do. And her first thought is that he's going to bring Ivan in.
I know. I was like, okay. Ivan hasn't shown up in about 50 pages, so I don't know why you think he would be here.
And I also don't know why you think he would be a bargaining chip. Like, obviously it's going to be your brother.
Right. And honestly, it's just her brother, right? Because her father is the one holding Ash, like, at knife point.
Yeah. And again, I don't know why her father is there. Where is Ash's father?
I don't know. He seems really chill about this whole thing. Because remember, he was at the bus station when that whole thing was happening and was just like, I don't know. It doesn't look like anything to me. No, and now he's probably just like, well, he's probably at somebody's house.
He's probably fine.
So Gray tells her to cooperate and nothing will happen to Ash. Willow tells her father that she'll kill him for this, and he cockily says that she won't live long enough to do that.
Well, no, because she's going to be queen of hell.
Right.
Dumbass.
Willow ends up complying and gives Susanna and George flesh again so their blood can be added to the ritual that Gray is conducting.
That was gross.
Yeah, very gross. Once she does this, they are unmade and they turn to dust. Then he stabs Willow in the stomach. As he does this, he does say, quote, "I'm sorry, it'll be over soon."
Yeah.
But then he makes it worse because he reaches inside of her and pulls out a fabric pouch.
Which is so fucking weird. She grew up in the human world. What if she had previously, like, broken a rib and gotten, like, x-rays?
And they're just like, what the fuck?
It's in you.
Okay, isn't there a better way that Charlotte could be with her? Like, she could just be on a necklace or something. I'm realizing in real time that Willow had a bone of Charlotte Hecate's, which should have been able to give her the power of the Hecate line.
Oh, you're right. Why couldn't she just utilize the power? Is that why she could, like, sense the power?
I don't know. There were so many questions. Okay. Anyway,
really
we're just going to drive right past that.
Moving on.
So Gray gives her his blood to heal her, but inside the pouch is a rib, and it turns out to be Charlotte Hecate's rib, and he adds this to the offering of organs and blood already assembled. Once he does so, a woman appears with auburn hair and purple eyes, and Willow recognizes her as the woman from her visions, Charlotte Hecate. Okay, now, I thought for sure, I don't know if we're going to include the debrief in this, it's a wild one, so maybe, but I thought for sure, as soon as Charlotte Hecate appeared, I was like, oh, okay, Gray and Charlotte Hecate be fucking, and that's his whole motivation here.
That's what I thought, and I thought this is where we were going to get the true villain, because his happily ever after could have been with Charlotte, and I thought we were going to get the true villain of like, fuck you, Willow, this is all I needed.
Right, exactly. And then book 2 is going to be all about like her being some side chick and then having this weird like push-pull with Charlotte, but that's not what happened.
No, that would have been a better story.
Yeah. So Charlotte appears, and Willow's father is irate of all people because he thought Gray would bring back Lorelai.
Why?
Also, bro, why do you give a shit?
Why are you so obsessed with her?
Why are you so obsessed with me?
And what are you going to do with
So Charlotte looks this guy dead in the eyes and says, only the worst kind of man would harm his only daughter, and raises a single hand and suffocates him.
Without touching him.
Without touching him. Ash is released from his father's hold, or from Willow's father's hold, and runs to Willow. They embrace, and as they do so, Charlotte entombs Willow's father in the stone floor beneath them, saying, quote, let's see how you like living in the darkness.
Which is a metal move, but also I don't think that was your place to do.
No, and like Willow even says that as Charlotte turns back to look at her, that it's clear that Charlotte knows that what Willow's father did to her, and what Charlotte did was an act of revenge for Willow, but like I think that should have been Willow's place to do.
100% it should have been.
And maybe in book 2 she'll like pull him out of the stone and resurrect him and do it again. I don't know. That would be metal as hell.
That would be metal. I want that.
Yeah. So the dance floor is kind of clear, and Charlotte tells Willow that it's time to say goodbye, and Juliet's going to take Ash back to his father now. Willow begs her not to make her say goodbye again, but Charlotte tells her that this is for the best since Willow still has yet to fulfill her destiny. Ash will be safer with his father until she does that. Neither Ash nor Willow are happy, but Juliet takes Ash away. Willow had thought that her destiny was done now that Charlotte was back, but Charlotte tells her that Charlotte's not her destiny. Charlotte is merely a gift from Willow's husband so that Willow can survive what comes next. When Willow balks that she doesn't have a husband, Charlotte says that the mark on her back says otherwise. And, there's so much to unpack here.
There's so much to unpack.
Okay, so 1, how does Charlotte know that the mark on Willow's back means that she's fucking married? And is it just married to one guy?
Or that she even has a mark?
Or is that like the marriage mark of the underworld?
Oh yeah, that's true. So like, how do you know who her husband is? Or just that she's married?
Right. Or look, if Charlotte knew it was going to happen the whole time, she probably knew that homeboy was going to marry her great-great-great-great-great-great-great-granddaughter. Gross. Anyway.
How are there only 3 generations of these witches?
Well, that we know about.
That's true.
Because Lorelai wasn't Charlotte's daughter.
No.
Lines between Charlotte and Lorelai because they were both like killed, and they're both like Hecate witches, and the circumstances of their death are like unsure, and it's unclear how both of them fit into this storyline.
I think that's my problem, is that I am unclear on how the 3 of them are like actually linked, and like when the deal was made, why the deal was made, because it talks about, it's kind of implied that Charlotte, which we'll talk about, but like Charlotte is the reason the vessels exist. Charlotte is the reason that like magic exists. I just feel like there's a lot of missing bodies in this family tree.
Right. Well, okay, and it's wild to me that magic has only existed for 300 years.
Right?
That doesn't make any sense.
No.
Yeah, and I think it would have been a lot cleaner if Lorelai as a character just wasn't so prominent. Like,
yeah.
Like, her father could be obsessed with getting the power back, and then his aim was always to kill his daughter so that he could have the power.
That would make more sense.
Right, not to have this weird obsession with his sister to come back.
Yeah, because, like, what were you going to do with her?
Yeah. I don't know. So Willow is reeling with a lot of questions, not the same questions that we have, but she does voice one of them aloud, and we get an answer to why the bone was inside of her. Gray put it there the night that Willow was born because Charlotte made him promise a long time ago to ensure that Charlotte would always be close with Willow.
I don't understand. What? Was it all for this moment? Like, I don't get why.
I have a lot of questions. So Charlotte goes on to reveal that Willow is the daughter of two, and she was always the price for Charlotte's bargain with the devil. Willow asks Charlotte why Charlotte's face is on the mirror, but Charlotte tells Willow that it's not her face, it's Willow's face. So it becomes pretty clear that Willow is the devil's bride and the queen of hell, which was the price for Charlotte getting magic. She was going to produce this queen, right? But I don't understand why, if Charlotte got her power from the devil himself, why the devil needed to make this bargain at all to get a queen.
Yeah, why wouldn't Charlotte just have been the queen?
And so vessels, like when they feed from witches, have some access to their power, but if magic came from hell at first,
why don't they have power?
That seems like a demotion.
It does seem like a demotion. So then why would the devil even make this bargain to be like, oh yes, let me weaken all of the demons so that you have power? So I can have a child bride in 300 years?
Yeah. Okay, also, I don't know if we said this, but I'm going to say it again in case we missed it. Let's go through a logical exercise here, right? So Gray knew about Willow from her birth because he put the fucking rib into her little baby body when she was born, right? Okay, that's weird in and of itself. What's weirder is that he doesn't know what happened to Willow to make her so upset the night of the reaping.
Also, they had a conversation previously, I think, where Willow's like, was this your plan the whole time? And he's like, no, you were a surprise. No, she wasn't. You've been planning on this for 300 years.
Right, and you knew about her the moment she was born, so how was she? Tell me how she was a surprise again?
But then you just, like, didn't monitor her when she was at her dad's house?
Right. Like, everything he says in this book has to be a fucking lie.
It does, because even in the beginning, when the council or the covenant are like, go get this other one, and he's like, huh, why me?
Okay, but why would the council send the devil to go get his own bride?
I don't know. How did he end up on Earth?
Why?
Has he been imprisoned in this human body since Charlotte made the deal with him?
Yes,
And
I think so.
why would he have agreed to that?
I don't know. Also, why was he not courting Willow before he showed up on her doorstep if he knew about her, right? Wouldn't you think that if you as the devil wanted your wife to like you
and your plan was to give her back the bones the whole time, why even do any of this gaslighting?
I just don't understand.
Me either. Okay.
Anyway, we're so close to the end. So Charlotte takes Willow's hands and presses them to the mirror and tells her to not let go until she says otherwise, because if she does, Willow will die. The mirror disappears and a spiral staircase is revealed that goes down into what is seemingly a bottomless pit. Willow asks to be allowed to die, but Charlotte tells her that she is the only hope of fixing what Charlotte has done. What? As Willow watches in horror, several demons ascend the stairs from hell and enter into the mortal world. We get actual names here, but I'm unfamiliar with the lore, and so I don't know if that matters or if their descriptions are true to the accepted lore, but the names that we get are Beelzebub, Satanus, Leviathan, Mammon, and Asmodeus? Whatever.
I've heard those names. That's all I know.
These guys show up, and in between the last two, they're carrying a bed with a figure lying face down on it. This figure also has wounds on his back where wings used to be. Willow quickly realizes that this is the devil, but is confused as to why he's not moving, and Charlotte tells her, oh, honey, that's because his soul's already here.
Okay.
Gray puts a hand on Willow's shoulder and asks whether she's ready to hear his true name yet.
Lucifer.
Before she can answer, Charlotte begins to disappear and Willow starts to panic. In her mind, Charlotte was the one person who had ever helped her, but there's nothing she can do to stop it and Charlotte is gone.
So again, was Charlotte only brought back so that Willow opened the gate without dying?
Yes, I think so.
That just seems so unnecessary.
Yeah. So once that happens and she lets go, Willow rounds on Gray and tells him she'll never forgive him for this. He tells her, quote, you will. In time, you'll realize just how fleeting human life is, how little it matters. When everyone you know has died and lies rotting in the earth, you and I will remain. You will find that anything can be forgiven if given the time for memory to fade. When she protests that she is human, he tells her she won't be like that for long.
What?
He then asks/commands her to put him back into his body, and she initially refuses, but he says, quote, I cannot love you in this form, but I can in my own. Let me love you as you deserve, witchling. So she puts her hand on Lucifer's chest and lets her necromancer magic flow, and as she does, Gray's vessel unmakes and Lucifer's chest begins to rise and fall. And that is where this fucking book ends.
This book is a wild ride. Like, I felt
Truly.
that as I was reading, and now actually going through it, I feel very much like, what the fuck is happening?
Yeah. Like, I stand by the sentiment that I had a great time reading this book.
I had such a good time.
But it's not good.
No, I'm confused and disoriented. I have many questions.
Yes. Many questions, many thoughts.
Many thoughts. Many thoughts.
Let's get into our ratings. Okay, so we have a little bit of a disagreement here, and so I think it'll be interesting to talk about that. So let's start with spice level. We agree here. So Liz, how do we rate that?
We both gave it a 3. We do get some spicy scenes. I do wish there were more of them, but we get the banter, we get the detail. If she wasn't a virgin, I think the sex scene, the one that we get, could have made this a 4, but it's just her weird virginity kind of trips me up. And we got a bunch of lead up to like her being on her knees for him, and we never got that, and that kind of bummed me out.
Yeah, and like as much as he like said that he would be on his knees for her, like I guess he kind of does when he eats her out from behind, but I really wanted that to be like leaned into a little bit more.
Yeah.
Because she's not in power in that scene at all.
No, not at all. Which kind of makes for an interesting, like, I'm on my knees for you, but I'm not, like, I'm still in control, which is fun.
Yeah.
But I do hope in the next book we get more of that, like, worship kind of
yeah,
conversation.
Same. And I hope we get more more as in quantity, and then more explicit, like more explicit than they were in this book scenes in book 2.
Yes, because there's a lot of promise for it, because even like after they've sex the first time, he says something, I don't know if it's in his inner monologue or to Willow, but like, oh, you made a mistake, like I'm gonna want to be inside you all the time now.
Yeah.
Follow through on that.
Right. Cue him not being inside of her for the rest of the book.
Ever again.
Okay, so moving into writing style, we had a bit of a disagreement here. So I rated it a 2 and you rated it a 4. So tell me why you rated it a 4.
Listen, so now okay. I think, and I could just be really wrong because I did read this at the top of my lungs, but I didn't notice a lot of like formatting errors. There weren't a lot of like typos. Like, functionally the book was fine. Like, okay, so I think it was well edited from a grammatical standpoint, not from a story standpoint. But now I'm wondering if that's true or if I just read too fast to catch any errors.
So I will say that it definitely got better like in the back half of the book. But in the first part of the book, there were just straight up words missing from sentences.
Oh, really? Maybe I just didn't notice that. I just didn't clock that at all.
So you're right. Like the formatting is great. And like the like sentence structure is fine. And it's very approachable. The story isn't edited well.
No.
But the words just missing out of sentences, I cannot rate it higher than a 2 for that.
Okay, I'm gonna come down to you because I missed that, and I fully trust that you are correct.
Okay, so we have quorum there. Moving into quality of storytelling, we rated this a 3. So walk us through that rating.
Okay, so as you've probably followed, this was a chaotic journey for many reasons. There are so many plot holes. Like, you could find Atlantis. You could find fucking so many places. I was trying to think of another mythical place. El Dorado. There's so many places that are hidden in these plot holes. We have so many questions. There are so many bits of information that are introduced and never followed up on. Like, we still don't know what happened 50 years ago. What massacre? Who died? Who did it? There's no way to know. Why is the devil in this vessel body? Why is he headmaster? What did the Covenant really want to do? Also, we didn't mention it, but Charlotte says something like the vessels were just a distraction. Girl, what?
Girl, what? Also, why could she not access the necromancer powers when she had fucking Charlotte Hecate's bone in her entire life?
That doesn't make any sense. What is her dad's motive? There's so many fucking questions. And I think the only reason why it's a 3, because really for the amount of questions and chaos we have, it should be like a 1 or a 2. But it was also fun.
It was just fun. And I think it's worth mentioning that this take on like magic and witchcraft and vampires honestly is a refreshing take. It's something that I haven't seen before. And I'm invested. Like, for all of the plot holes in this book, the way that she described and like made the world feel real and make sense worked. I don't have a problem with the way magic works in this book.
No, I have a bit of a problem with where magic came from in the first place. That's a little confusing. But the rules of magic all make sense.
Correct.
And I'm intrigued by that. And you're right, the take on vampires is really interesting. Even this like Hecate, Lucifer combo, like, it's just a really interesting take on like where witches come from and all of this stuff. But I have 1,000 questions.
Yep. So this might come as a surprise, but do we recommend this book?
Actually, yeah.
Yeah, actually, it's a great time.
And we're gonna read the next one. Like, I'm fully prepared to have many more questions, but I'm hoping it'll be fun.
I think it's gonna be a great time. I mean, look, I read at the top of my lungs in this book. I haven't done that for a lot of the books, even the books that we liked. It's just a different category of book for me.
It was refreshing.
Yeah,
it was refreshing. So like, this book was fun. It was a different take on the fantasy. I'm stoked for the next one.
Yeah, me too. Cool. All right, we did it. Those are our thoughts on The Coven by Harper L. Woods. Thank you, as always, for joining us on this journey. Let us know what you thought on the socials. You can find us everywhere at Spice Traders Pod. And if you like our podcast and want more, consider becoming a patron, where we release Patreon-exclusive episodes on our off weeks. And if you really, really like us, drop us a review wherever you listen. But until next time, we'll see ya. Bye.
Bye.